Hi, I'm Phil Swayze, Director of Guitar at Bedichek Middle School in Austin. In the fall, I'll be entering my 10th year teaching, and like many of you, I was searching in the spring for ways to give clear and consistent instruction and feedback to my students last spring when we shifted to a remote approach. One of my strategies last spring was to use sequenced out instructional videos to guide my students through the material that I wanted them to work on. This video is going to cover some topics that go into making your own tutorial videos for your students in the fall. Rather than pulling in pre-recorded materials from the internet, the goals of creating your own content are to make personalized, customized, and clear sequences for your students to follow. It's also a lot easier to be goal-oriented when you're in charge of the content that you're creating. And the workflow for making these videos can be very adaptable, meaning that if one of your sequences isn't working, you'll be able to change that and adapt it the next week to suit the needs of your students. I know making these videos can be a little bit awkward and time-consuming sometimes, but also these are going to be very applicable to blended instruction and guided practice once we return back to a normal classroom. These videos can really help your students get the most out of their at-home practice. The first step in creating these sequences is to select your repertoire piece. Now, remote learning offers some challenges that are a little different than a live classroom. So my recommendation is to look for a piece of music that has a lot of repetition, but small musical and expressive variations between the repetitions. This will allow the students to get into the piece very easily and adapt content in small ways throughout the sequence. I know a lot of teachers experience this in the spring, but what we can accomplish in a 100% remote situation is probably a lot less than what we can accomplish in a live classroom. So when you're selecting your repertoire, less is more. You want to set very achievable goals so your students can find success within that project. We're going to take a look at two pieces from guitarcurriculum.com that would work really well in a remote classroom for the reasons that I listed before. The first piece is called Violet Crown. It's a level 1 beginner piece. And the second piece that we'll look at is mixed level, Lacrimosa. It's an arrangement of a Mozart vocal canon. The Violet Crown is a beginner piece, level 1. Probably not the very first piece that you'd start with a class, but pretty soon after. It includes some left-hand fretted notes. It really only has 4 ostinato patterns that repeat throughout. So when you're breaking this down for remote instruction, you really only would need to create 4 different instructional videos to teach all the different 4 parts. Now you'd need to provide feedback during that process to get students to the result that you want. But as far as the makeup of this piece, it lends itself very easily to that process. This is the Guitar 1 Level 4 part for Lacrimosa, the Mozart vocal canon. This is probably more for advanced ensembles, but it still has those structural elements that would lend itself really nicely to remote learning. It's a 16 measure canon separated into 4 phrases of 4 measures, starting at the beginning, then rehearsal letter A, rehearsal letter B, and then rehearsal letter C. So the structure is already in place for you to kind of create assignments and have students submit each section. And then once all those assignments have been compiled, this would be a really fun piece to edit together to create a really beautiful polyphonic end result. In a normal live music classroom environment, the goals for learning material are usually performance-based, meaning that there's going to be a concert at the end of the semester and we need to get ready for it as a class. Now in remote learning, we need to shift that goal into other places and to other ideas. And this can be challenging for teachers at first. A couple of remote learning project ideas might be audio edited ensemble recordings. We'll go over that a little bit more when Travis talks about Everything Changes at Once. They could be live performances in a Zoom meeting for classmates. Maybe it's solo material. Maybe it's a student recording a video of them performing for their family at home. But the idea is that there is an ending goal and there is a product that will be produced by this sequence. The next step is to look at the piece as a whole and break it down into more digestible chunks. These could be phrases, they could be guitar parts, And then you want to allow for flexibility in your pacing. I think some teachers are producing very long stretches of sequences at a time, ready to just dump in a classroom and call it a day. But as your students are working through these videos, there'll be challenges that are coming up that you didn't see coming. And being flexible is a way for you to address those challenges as they're coming up in a week or during a project. So that means it's just a little bit of pre-planning, working video production time into your kind of conference periods or your weekly planning periods in prep, so you can change directions to address issues that are coming up during the weeks. Every so often, you're going to want to ask for an assignment submission from your students. This is just a way to provide feedback during the process and check in on them. There's a couple of different ways that you can ask for this assignment submission, and that's audio or video. Audio is great for musical challenges like dynamics, note accuracies, or rhythms. And video is a lot more telling for technical issues and things that you want to watch out for that your students might be having trouble with in technical ways. When you do ask for an assignment submission from your students, create a guide track so the student can play along with you accurately and feel like they're a part of your classroom. For more advanced students, you might be able to just provide clear metronome markings for them to follow, but the guide tracks are always a great idea. When a project is nearing completion, it's time to think about how you're going to celebrate or how you're going to launch your project. This could be done in a lot of different ways. You could have students, like I said previous in this video, perform for their family at home. You could debut the edit of a video in a live Zoom session, invite members of the community, faculty, parents. This is where us as teachers need to be creative to think about ways for students to really feel the ultimate reward of all the hard work that they've done. There's another video in this lesson sequence that'll get a little bit more in detail about technical routes that you can take to record content, and that'll be produced by Eric, so take a look out for that. And then at the end of this sequence, you're going to be recording your own technical instruction video and uploading it to Canvas.